Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Just Sayin. I'm Sutton Smith, joined my co-host Jake Osteen. I'm here to talk about some more college football today. Hope you guys strap in and get ready to talk some ball.
You,
We're starting a new segment today. It's going to be best bets. So each week we're going to give you guys a few games, maybe even a few players for you prize picks people for some over unders, money line, over under total scores. We got a little bit of some requests for those, so we're going to start doing that. We're also going to get to our SEC quarterback tier list today. I'm sure Jake's got a few interesting takes on those. That's why. Our three most important players to either their respective teams heading into 2023, we'll hit those today, and we'll even hit some hot takes today. I know just myself. I know Jake's not going to agree with what I'm going to say, so
no, I'm not.
maybe we'll fulfill that fiery part of our show. But
Look, you're
go
you're
ahead.
gonna you're gonna hate my second hot take. You're gonna hate it with a passion.
Just to go ahead and start the show, I just want people to know that I haven't said much about Alabama in this last show, and I'm not going to say much about him tonight. So I know Jake's going to talk about him.
Dude,
Someone's going to have to talk about him. So
no. It has not nothing to do with Alabama, but it is not about Alabama's football team at all. Not
oh,
even. So
okay, all
you're
right.
gonna
Well,
have to wait. You're gonna have to wait about an hour to hear it.
so guys, so we got a surprise, I guess, from Jake later on the show. You're gonna have to tune in the whole time. Make sure again, guys, to like and comment and subscribe on YouTube and subscribe here on Apple Podcast. But without further ado, we're actually going to start with some breaking news today. Sadly for you Georgia Bulldog fans, Jake, can you break down the current state of the Georgia Bulldog running back room?
Yeah, so I was talking about it on the last show. I said I wasn't really nervous about the running back room, not worried about it, unless one of the guys we're supposed to get back goes down. Well,
Mm-mm.
happened yesterday at practice. Branson Robinson in a non-contact jersey, already injured, ruptured his patella, I believe, and so he is out for the season, which is a
Do it.
bummer. It's not end of the world because I talked about it in our first show. I still believe we don't have to have an elite running back because we have an elite offensive line and we do a running back by committee. So we don't need someone who's going to be elite, but Branson Robinson was going to be our number two behind our 1A and 1B in Kendall and Dejan. So it does suck. It sucks for him because I think he was poised for a big breakout season in a sophomore season, but Cash Jones season, that's all I got to say. Cash Jones.
And that's something that we've been talking about on this podcast. So when it happens, we can say, "Hey, Just Saying was the first people that said it." We've been talking about him all years, or our first three episodes. He's probably been
I've
the
been,
name that's been brought up the most of anybody.
it really has been. I've been saying it since last year. Cash Jones and Mekhi Muse, they make some noise. They're shifty guys. But there is better news. I don't know if I was just misinformed or if the wrong information was out there. I believe Dejan is going to be back relatively soon, probably by South Carolina, I'm hoping. So I don't think he's going to be out until Kentucky, like I said. And Kendall's most likely going to be back by the first game. But aside from they're not necessarily jokes about Cash Jones because Cash Jones can make some noise. He's going to get reps. But we're going to put a lot of weight on both Roderick Robinson, the freshman, and Andrew Paul, the redshirt freshman, who tore his ACL last year. We're going to put a lot of weight on their shoulders. They're going to have to carry the load. I am excited to see because one of the reasons I love college football is just everybody, and especially I do enjoy the transfer portal. Might be a hot take, might be getting the hot takes early. But I like seeing players go different places. I like the constant, circus of everyone going everywhere. So I'm excited to see someone new, but Branson going down is definitely a blow.
And just touching on what you're saying about the transfer portal, I completely understand. The older generations of college football fans. Like I know, like my dad, for instance, we both know my dad is not a fan of the transfer portal.
Max
But
is Max is
I'm
no fan of it.
no, but I'm all about it. For college football, it's about the athlete, right? It's about making the best opportunity for the athlete, and the transfer portal is best for most athletes. You just have to be wise in the way you use it.
Yeah.
So I know you wanted to talk about the on three freshman All American team.
No, we don't have to talk about that tonight.
Okay. Well, just for our listeners to know, both Alabama and Georgia both had the most players on that team, both with 14. There's three teams. Alabama and Georgia both had 14 representatives on all three of those. Spread across those three teams. Georgia had 10 on the first team, which is very notable. Alabama had 4, but they had the most. They had the most players spread across those three teams. LSU, I believe, was third with 11.
Yeah, just
To let you know.
Don't mean to correct you, but just might confuse some of the listeners. Not the on 3 freshman All-American list. That's the All SEC.
The All SEC. Okay.
Yeah.
My bad.
So Georgia, no, you're good. Georgia had 10 players on the first team, 4 on the second. I didn't even know there was a third that they came out.
Third. Yeah.
We didn't have any on the third. But yeah, no, what I wanted to talk about was Julian Lewis. For the listeners that don't know who Julian Lewis is, he's class of 2026 QB, number 1 overall recruit. He might be, when it's all said and done, because recruiting isn't really done right now for 2026. When it's all said and done, he might be a perfect 1.0 recruit, because he's being talked about as completely generational. I mean, I can't remember recruitment hyped up as much as him since maybe Trevor Lawrence. But I don't know about you. I was shocked that 1, he committed this early, and 2, that he went to USC, because the big name I had heard was Alabama, and he's from the state of Georgia. He's from Western Georgia, in Carrollton, so about an hour where we're from. But I mean, props to him to going to USC. I mean, under Lincoln Riley, he can only get better. I mean, what do you think about that pickup?
No, I definitely, I wouldn't say I was shocked at the choice of the school. I was definitely shocked at when the commitment came. Most kids aren't committing their sophomore year. I'm not now he is committing his sophomore year. I'm not sure how solid of a commitment that is. I mean, we did see Bryce Young commit to USC his sophomore year, and then senior year go to Alabama.
Yeah, I mean,
Bryce Young 2.0. I mean, he does have, his player comparison is Bryce Young. He's a shorter guy. Kind of looks like Bryce Young. I mean, in all honesty, watching him on ESPN2 last week against Langston Hughes. I mean, he looked like, they lost that game, but he looked like the real deal as a sophomore, which it's crazy.
Just looking at him, he looks like a California dude. If I were to guess where he's from, I would not say West Georgia at all. He looks like California. I mean, but I was telling some of my friends, this might be a bad take, but I'd say there's like a 51 to 55% chance USC actually signs him, because obviously he's committed, but we're 2 years away from that signing day. Yeah. There's so much to go on. And I mean, I can think of some of the players who have committed within 2 years past 2 years of signing day for us, and we'd almost never sign them. I mean, there's
think about it this way too. I mean, you can't go on an official visit until your junior year. That's per NCAA rules. So he basically has been going on unofficial visits to these schools and talking to coaches on the phone. So, and official visits mean a lot. So once he starts taking official visits, if he stays locked in the whole way, maybe even becomes a recruiter for USC down the path, I could definitely see that happening. But there's still a lot left in this young man's recruitment, and Alabama and Georgia certainly aren't going to back down from that, especially being so close to home for him, especially Georgia.
It's definitely not over, not for any team. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see how that recruitment plays out.
But if you look at the timeline, and I mean, the timeline he's going in is around the timeline Malachi Nelson could be leaving. And almost the same could be said for Dylan Raiola as well. If he was to go to Georgia, Raiola probably would have another year, but Malachi Nelson would be gone by then. So
100%.
All up in the air. Yeah.
Let's lead this into some best bets. And talk a little bit of week 0 preview. We got college football this weekend.
Finally.
I'm so excited.
So sick and tired of preseason NFL.
My roommates and I set 5 TVs up in the living room just for Saturdays. This weekend we probably won't need as many, but
no, there's only 7 games this weekend.
Yeah, no, and I won't watch all of them. I'll definitely watch 3 of them, and that's the 3 that we're gonna hit on mainly. Number 1. I don't know how you feel about this. Navy Notre Dame. I'm taking Navy plus 20.5.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm actually going to disagree with you there. I think Sam Hartman's going to show it off his first game in Notre Dame. I've got 20.5 covered.
You see,
So
I think he will. I think he will. But I mean, I didn't just want to hammer the favorites in this. Wanted to throw an underdog in there. But Navy, I mean, they run a triple option. They run every single play pretty much. And Notre Dame is a physical team, but they're going to limit possession so much. I don't see Notre Dame getting more than, I don't know, maybe 10 possessions this game. Especially in Sam Hartman's first game, because we know who he is. He's great quarterback. I believe the all-time passing touchdowns leader in the ACC. Playing for a new team in Notre Dame this year, but I mean, I'm excited to see how that game goes. I'm excited to see how Sam Hartman plays and just how Marcus Freeman rallies his team.
yeah, Sam Hartman's certainly a guy I wish Alabama would have capitalized on in the transfer portal. I think the talk around Tuscaloosa would be a lot different this year. But I definitely correct. You're definitely correct about the way Navy's going to play the game. Obviously, triple option offense. They're going to run the crap out of the ball. Time possession is going to be a lot slimmer for Notre Dame. So obviously not as many possessions. But the problem with that is Navy's going to have to score.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to score much in this game, if at all. I would not be surprised if Notre Dame pitched a shutout in this game. And I do think Notre Dame will score in the 30s. I think, they don't necessarily have to show off exactly everything Sam Hartman has, but we know Sam Hartman is a special and talented quarterback. I mean, he went toe-to-toe against Clemson for 3 years at Wake Forest with virtually nothing to help him out. I'm hitting the Notre Dame going to cover and the 20.5 point spread.
One thing I didn't think about, they got Ohio State the weekend after this, don't they?
I think they either have them the week 2 or week 5. You have to look that up. But yeah, I mean, last year Notre Dame without Sam Hartman gave Ohio State a run for their money, and probably against a better Ohio State team. So and they played them on the road last year. They get them at home this year. So
I just looked it up. They got them September 23rd, which is week 4. One thing, I thought it was week 1 that they had them, maybe week 2. But one thing I didn't think about is that, I mean, they're going to want to get Sam Hartman some situations, some throws. Wow. So, maybe they don't have a 20-point lead and they just run the ball out for the rest of the game. Maybe they let Sam Hartman sling it and they not necessarily try to run up the score, but, let him throw the ball around more.
So you're changing sides is what I'm hearing. You're changing sides.
No, I still got Navy plus 20.5 because I don't think Sam Hartman is the greatest quarterback ever. Do I think he's good? Yeah. I also don't think they have a ton of weapons around him. And I mean, they're going up against Navy. I don't think this game is going to be close. I don't think Navy has a shot to even win this game. But I think the score is going to be the opposite of how the game goes, where it's going to be 17-20. I think that's how much Notre Dame wins by. But, the game's in hand from the very first possession.
I think, and I don't know if this is much of a hot take, and this is not a hot take that I'm going to have for this show, but I think Sam Hartman is the best quarterback in probably the last 15 years Notre Dame's had. I mean, name me someone better. The guy that went to the Cleveland Browns, what was his name? He was in the league for a little bit.
DeShone Kizer.
DeShone Kizer. I mean, he was fine, but I think Sam Hartman is a top 10 quarterback in football. I mean, he's probably the best quarterback they've had in a long time.
I definitely agree with you, but I mean, this might be their worst set of weapons around them in a while too, because they don't. I mean, they're going to find people. They're a great program, but I mean, Michael Mayer's gone. I can't tell you a single wide receiver they had last year. I don't know who they are. So
yeah, I'm not exactly. I definitely haven't done my homework on Notre Dame, mainly because I didn't think they are going to be in a position. But hey, as the season goes on, we may have to freshen up a little bit. We'll have to see.
Now the game I'm most excited for, maybe second. I don't know. But Hawaii Vandy, we got a rematch from last year's game. This year it's Vandy's high school field.
Cone High School in Nashville holds 2,000 fans, and it still won't be sold out.
But I'm taking Vandy minus 17. I don't want to call it a lock, but I mean, I think Vandy's going to be decent this year. We've talked about AJ Swan. We've talked about what's his name, Will Shepard. Is that his name?
Will Shepard Nugget coming later in the show as well.
Okay. But we've talked about both of them. They're going to be really good. And Hawaii, I'm not going to lie, I know nothing about them.
Hawaii is bad. Hawaii is bad. They're one of the worst in college football.
I'm gonna assume they're the same version of their team last year, and Vandy won 63-10 at
They're
Hawaii's
they're
place.
they're worse. They're
Really?
worse. Hawaii's bad. Hawaii's very bad. Vandy will easily cover the spread.
Yeah. So
Um,
let me remind the audience, I'm not necessarily putting my money in here. I'm a prize picks user a little bit, not much. Um, I'm not putting my money on this, so I'm in no way an expert. But if I were to find $20 on the side of the road and I was forced to use it for sports betting, these are the games I'm putting them on. These are the lines. So
so
again,
yeah,
but
and same
this Vandy game,
same thing for me. I mean, last year, me and a few buddies at Alabama had a spreadsheet where we picked the money lines week in and week out. I finished the season with a 56% winning percentage. So at the end of the day, you guys, if you listen to me, chances are you're going to win some money. I mean, you're going to lose bet. Everybody loses bets every now and again. I'm not putting my own money on it, but I just like to do it for fun. We've gotten some requests. Now I am an occasional prize picks user. Last year I did win. I did win some money last year on prize picks, not gonna lie. So I'm not gonna tell you the sum of money I won, but I won some money last year, guys. So prize picks are coming up here in a minute. But yeah, I agree with you. Hawaii's a terrible team. Vanderbilt's gonna be better this year. Still gonna be the worst team in the SEC, but they're an SEC team going up against an absolute nobody, aka the Rainbow Warriors. Who, by the way,
so
are having to travel probably like, I want to know how many miles and how long of a flight that is to Nashville. Um, Let me just say that I know West Virginia always gets crap about their having to travel all the way over there, flying out of the mountains and everything, but nothing compares from Hawaii, flying from Hawaii to Nashville, especially with everything that's been going on in Maui recently.
and and Vandy won last year 63-10 when they had to make that flight. And their team, I believe, is better than last year. And you're saying Hawaii's worse. So I think this game could be over 7.
This game's gonna get ugly.
Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking.
So
But
hey, SEC football.
yeah. But just if you're a Vanderbilt player, just don't say Alabama, you're next, because then we'll go beat you 63-0 like we did.
All right, don't brag about beating Vandy. Brag about
Okay. All right. Anyways, besides Vandy, hammer that Vandy to cover. Okay.
So
Hold on. I want to go with my most exciting game.
you got it.
My most exciting game. We're gonna
Exciting.
get some MAC action, okay? Ohio versus San Diego State. Okay. San Diego State is a 2-point favorite at home over the Ohio Bobcats. I want to give a shout out to my roommate Robert Smith. We've been doing some research on the Ohio Bobcats, the Ohio University, the real Ohio. So they last year were top 10 in turnover differential on defense. So that meaning their defense turned the ball over. I think at a pace of like 2.2 a game. They were averaging almost 2 turns a game on defense. And San Diego State turned the ball over. I think they were like 130th in the country or something like that, and turning the ball over. Now, granted, this was last year. Obviously, teams can change, but Ohio does return their top pass catcher, their top rusher, and their quarterback. So I'm going to go with Ohio to outright beat San Diego State, and San Diego State will not cover that 2-point spread. I have Ohio outright winning this game, and I do think it'll be the most exciting game of the day, actually. So I'm really looking forward to watching that.
Where's this game at?
It's at San Diego State University. So Ohio will be on the road.
Do you happen to know the time?
I think it's I could be wrong, but it's either 8 or 7 Eastern. I can check.
I'll be watching it then. I'm excited. I mean, I didn't know that game. I thought it was going to be a blowout because I don't know anything about the Ohio Bobcats, but
It is Saturday, August 26th at 7 o'clock Eastern. So
sweet. I'll be tuned in.
Yeah.
Now, not necessarily the game I think I'm with you. From the way you described it, I think you persuaded me. I'm with Ohio covering the spread with them winning as well. So I'll agree with you. Good pick. The game.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course, not necessarily the game I'm most excited for, but the team I'm most excited for is to watch USC play. They play San Jose State. This game isn't going to be close. I have USC covering the 30. But I'm not interested in USC's offense. They're going to be elite this year. Caleb Williams is back. They might have one of the best wide receiver corps in the nation. O-line's pretty good. So, I mean, everything's solid. And they have Marshawn Lloyd in their running back with some other guys. I'm interested to see how their defense does. I was just on Instagram and I saw apparently Bleacher Report had hot takes. They weren't hot at all. One of them was that USC's defense is going to hold them out of the playoff, which that's not a hot take at all.
I think that's probably going to happen.
Yeah, it happened last year. It might happen again. Anyway, though, I'm excited to see how their defense performs. I looked it up. San Jose State averaged about 29 points per game last year. And they lost 2 starting receivers, a tight end, and 2 OL. And so it's pretty much half of their offense is still there, half is gone. If San Jose State scores more than 30 this game, I'm terrified for USC's defense. I mean, I think their offense is going to put up probably 65, 70 plus points. But their defense, I don't know.
When are we going to start asking ourselves, though, is this just not going to forever be the Lincoln Riley way of playing football? I mean, has he ever had a good defense ever? No.
You know, the reason I disagree with that is just as a Georgia fan, I watched and heard everyone around me when Kirby first came in until he got Todd Monken. So his first 4 years in the league, first 4 years as a coach, his offense was abysmal. He was going through offensive coordinators every single year. Jim Chaney, James Coley. Oh my gosh. And he could never find the right one. And the offense was always stagnant. It was always the same thing. And I thought if we didn't win in 2021, we weren't national championship with him, just because I wasn't sure what the offense was going to be. And I really think it takes 1 year. And I mean, after 2021, we saw how our offense performed, and now our offense could potentially be better than our defense. So I'm not saying that USC's defense is going to be elite. I think they're going to be the opposite. I think they're one of the worst in the Pac-12. They just have probably the best offense in the Pac-12 to go with it. So they're going to win a lot of games.
Well, here's my rebuttal to what you just said, because right, Georgia, at least Kirby tried to fix the issue, right? Kirby hired different coordinators. Alex Grinch has been with Lincoln Riley. I think this is his 3rd or 4th year, and nothing has changed.
I agree.
And quite frankly, they're not recruiting the type of they were, and then they lose these guys last second. Michael Williams being one of them. So, you know,
Michael Williams was always going to be a hard pull out of Hardaway, though.
Exactly, I understand, but he was committed to USC, and he did decommit. So, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's going to keep. I don't think it. The way they're going to play offense, they have the Heisman winner. You can never count them out, no matter what their defense looks like, because they're going to put up points. They're probably the best offense in college football, if not a top 3 offense. But I honestly don't. I'm not going to buy too much stock in what I see on Saturday night, just because it's San Jose State is not a formidable opponent and not someone. I mean, if they put up 30, okay, I'll buy stock in that. But if they put up in like if they throw a 0 out there or a 10 or a 4, I'm not going to look too much.
I 100% agree. My thing wasn't buying stock in their defense. I'm strictly only selling it if I see something. Because if they shut them out, I'm still not doing it. It's San Jose State. They should maybe not shut them out, but they should at least hold them below 10 points. But if they score 30 plus, I am selling their stock fast.
Oh yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, they have Corey Foreman, a former #1 overall recruit who hasn't really turned things around. We'll see if he does this year. Bear Alexander, the transfer from Georgia, who don't get me started on him. Not a fan of him, but great player. Just not a fan of him.
They have Shane Lee, former transfer linebacker from Alabama.
Shane Lee is there?
He's their starting middle linebacker. He started there last year. Yep.
Shane Lee. Wow, I didn't know that. You hate him.
Yeah, that dude is slow. He is about as slow as I was in high school.
I guess the opposite inside linebacker is a preseason All-American, number 13. I don't know who he is. And then I believe they also have a safety who's a preseason All-American. So, I mean, they have dudes on that defense, but they just can never play well together.
Depth is the concern at USC. They may have a few guys at headline start that are well, but depth is always going to be their concern on the defensive side. But I mean, now that we're done, those are really the 4 games that I think we're both looking at this weekend. Am I right?
Yeah. That's all.
So let's get to the prize picks. I've got four players that I think 2 overs and 2 unders, actually. Kind of cool how it came out to that. But I'm going to start off. I'm going to stay in that USC San Jose State game, and we're going to go Caleb Williams. I've got Caleb Williams under 270.5 yards passing in this game. I don't think that he's going to – I think he'll probably play the first half, but I think they get up so much in the first half that it'll be much run heavy. They'll run the ball a lot more than normal, and Miller Moss is going to play. Malachi Nelson's going to play in this game. Caleb Williams is going to have to play long. Really wouldn't be surprised if he was taken out, after the first series of the third quarter. So I'm going to go Caleb Williams under 270.5. I'm looking really more at him. I think he's going to go around 230, 240. 270, I think, is a stretch. So I'm going to go under on Caleb Williams.
I like that. Because, we don't need to see anything from Caleb Williams. There's no really, there's Dorian Singer there, but there's no extremely new weapons who we need to see things from. So I like it. I think he plays the first half and the first drive of the second half. But I'd probably go with you. Probably gonna throw for anywhere between 230 and 250 yards. Like I said, we don't need to see anything from him. So I like it. I would never put my money there because, they could want to throw the ball 20 times in the first quarter and he has 400 yards, but
it's always unpredictable with those type of offenses, especially Lincoln Riley at the helm. And especially with the freedom you're giving Caleb Williams. You got to think all the read options he's going to be running, and he's going to have the option to pull it or throw it himself. Yeah. And quarterbacks want to throw the ball. They don't want to hand the ball off. So, I honestly would put my money there. I believe in that. But, that's up to you guys again. But, Jake, you got another prize pick?
No, I don't have any prize picks.
Okay, so this is all me. Okay, all right. It's my segment.
My opinions.
This is my segment. Okay, all right. Most exciting game of the day, in my opinion. I remember we were just talking about the Ohio SDSU game. How about Curtis Rourke, the Ohio University Bobcat quarterback, over 270.5 yards passing in this game against SDSU? He's returning his number one receiver option. I just have a feeling that this is going to be a back and forth game. Obviously, with the spread the way it is, he passed for plenty of yards last season. Obviously a guy you're not going to hear a lot about, but I'm going to go the over 270.5 on Curtis Rourke for the Ohio Bobcats against the San Diego State Aztecs.
I don't have much of an opinion on that. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to see what his average was per game.
I should have done a little bit more homework on gotten the people their stats, but
he had an average of 296 a game last year, and like a loss to Penn State where he threw for 119 is included in that. So I like it. I don't think it's bad, especially because this game's going to be close. So it's not like the first game where Caleb Williams, you're really banking on him throwing for the over in the first half.
Yeah, and then a Penn State game you're losing by a lot, 119.
Especially with him being on Ohio. They're not the favorites. They're probably going to be down a good portion of this game. So they're going to be throwing it, I believe. So I like it.
All right, we'll go one final quarterback. It's going to be Sam Hartman. We're just talking about him out of Notre Dame. I have him under 260.5 yards passing against Navy, primarily for the reason why we were talking earlier. I think Notre Dame's going to get up early. They're not going to get as many possessions in this ball game as most people think, just because of the style of Navy. They have a really good running attack that no one really talks about. Kind of a duo monster head there at running back. I do think Sam Hartman is going to throw it around a lot, but I think Notre Dame's going to be put in a lot of favorable situations in terms of field position. Obviously, we were just talking about time of possession is going to be more in the hands of Navy. I think Notre Dame's defense may play 40 minutes out of the 60 minutes in this game. Realistically, because Navy couldn't catch a cold in Antarctica, and they're not stopping molasses in December on defense. So just to be honest with you guys, Notre Dame is going to rock them, and Sam Hartman might be out of this game, similarly to Caleb Williams in the first series of the third quarter.
You said that was 216 or 260?
260 with 260.5 yards. I'm betting the under on Sam Hartman.
Just for show, I'm going to disagree with you there. Like I said, they want to see what Sam Hartman can do. They want to see how he interacts with his weapons. I think he plays probably 3 quarters, even if they're winning by 40. And I think it's not going to be a lot of throws down the seam, for 40, 50 yards. I think it's going to be a lot of screens, maybe slants, where Navy just can't catch up to their athletes and they might break it for 80 yards. So I think it's going to be more of that, I mean, like we talked about, these can go either way, especially in these potential blowout games. So I'll go the over for it as well.
Okay. Well, the last one I have is a guy that I had as one of my underrated players in the SEC. It's Will Shepherd. And honestly, guys, I can't believe that when I saw this, I could not believe that this is even a possibility. His his receptions, projected receptions at 4.5 against Hawaii.
Hammer it.
Hammer the over.
Hammer it.
Hammer the over. This dude caught like over 70 passes last season.
He might have
5 catches on the first drive.
I was about to say he might break that on the first drive.
So if you want some money, I hammer the Will Shepherd. I put your bank account on the Will Shepherd. Obviously not. You didn't hear that from me. Never mind. You didn't hear that from me. But hammer the over 4.5 receptions against Hawaii on Will Shepherd.
Look up how many catches did he have against Hawaii last year?
I mean, if he only had 3 against them last year, maybe that's where odds makers are looking. But good Lord, I mean, 4.5 for him. I would throw, if I was Vandy, he would be the only guy I threw to.
He had 3 catches for 2 touchdowns last year.
for 2 touchdowns.
I mean, to be fair, it was only 39 yards, but
to be fair as well, Will Shepherd wasn't as much of a commodity before the season. Now that he was in the spotlight last year, he is. I think they feature him a little bit more this year. Obviously, I think they feature him a lot more. So that kind of concludes our best bets for week 0. I'm looking forward to continuing, to doing this throughout the season. And I'm sure next week after these games are done, we can go back and look at our bets and see how they lined up, and we'll probably even make a percentage just to see and keep track of it throughout the season, just to see how well we did.
Let's keep track of. Like you make an opinion on my bets and I'll make an opinion on your bets, and we'll just see where ours line up at the end of the season. We might throw in a reward or a punishment. Someone comment.
So we can remember now that we disagreed on Sam Hartman and the Notre Dame line. So we'll keep that in mind heading into next week. But I know the next segment, we could get not mad at each other, but a little flustered with one another. We're going to talk about SEC quarterback tiers. And how many tiers did you have?
I got 5. What about you?
Same. I had 5. I'm sure we named them a little differently. But let's go ahead and hop on this. And I'll start us off. I've gotten a lot of hate from Robert, my roommate, about this. But we're going to start off. Tier number 1 is going to be called Heisman Contender, not contenders, contender. That would be Joe Milton III of Tennessee. I don't think I have to talk more about him since I did last week, but that is my Heisman Contender Tier 1 SEC quarterback. Here's the rebuttal. That's all we get, guys, is this shaking my head. Jake, what's your number 1 quarterback in the SEC?
Why? I was going to put in my hot takes that he gets overtaken by Nico, however you pronounce his last name. Because I don't think that's going to happen. Like some of my hot takes for the season, I don't necessarily think they're going to happen, but they very realistically could. Joe Milton just is not good. He's not good. I'm phrasing it wrong. He is talented, very talented, a good quarterback, just not built for the SEC. If you have to rely on him to win a game, I don't think he will. I do not think he will win you a game.
Well, man, only time will tell. Only time will tell.
I don't have a number 1 quarterback. I have my tier 1 is just elite. It's Jaden Daniels, Will Rogers, and KJ Jefferson. I do think this year's SEC quarterbacks are a little lackluster. I don't think there's just that one guy. I mean, I know there's not just one guy. And I don't think there's a top 15 pick at the quarterback position here this year. Maybe someone eventually gets there, but not this year, not this upcoming draft. But I mean, those 3 guys, they're elite in my opinion. They would be starters on any other team in the SEC, most likely. So, I mean, they're the 3 best quarterbacks. Will Rogers would probably be my number 1. He's just on Mississippi State. And I mean, like I talked about, I think the first week, they might be the worst team in the SEC. They're in the bottom tier. So those are my three guys. Do you want to skip it down to the bottom tier 5 and then work
Sure,
our way up?
we'll kind of go in a little reverse order here. So my tier 5, I just listed these guys because let's be honest. I don't think there's necessarily a bad quarterback in the SEC. I'm just going to call these guys average. So I my tier 5, my bottom list is average quarterbacks. So I've got Jalen Milroe, Peyton Thorne, Brady Cook, AJ Swan, and Graham Mertz. And yes, I said Jalen Milroe. I do believe. I don't think he is. You can put him on. Remember, guys, this is preseason. I don't think you can necessarily tally him yet in the good quarterbacks or any of those other. Time will tell. But as of right now, I mean, the fact that Nick Saban hasn't named a starter, nobody's been a dog. I do still think Milroe is going to be the starter against Middle Tennessee State. But the fact that he hasn't gotten the nod, unlike Carson Beck, who's publicly has won the job. Milroe maybe has already won the job. He hasn't publicly. And I don't like that as a fan of the team. I don't like that he hasn't gotten the recognition yet from Saban. So I'm just going to list him as average. Obviously, Peyton Thorne, I think he's going to be probably the best quarterback Auburn's had since maybe freshman Bo Nix. Maybe better than freshman Bo Nix. I mean, freshman Bo Nix made a lot of mistakes, but I think Peyton Thorne is a guy who maybe minimizes the turnovers a little bit. He's a good short intermediate passer. He's not exactly the most athletic guy ever, but I think he'll be just fine. He'll be a fine quarterback for the barn. We both obviously we talked about Brady Cook and AJ Swan on this show. We both think if they were playing for better teams, obviously they would be higher up on this list. And then Graham Mertz, I mean, there was a dude who was super touted out of high school when he went to Wisconsin. His first game in Wisconsin, he put on a clinic and was never heard from again. So Billy Napier seems to have a lot of confidence in this guy, but I need to see more. But if he couldn't play great against the Big Ten, against subpar Big Ten West teams, I don't know how exactly he's going to fare against Georgia. I mean, it doesn't really sound good. So, I mean, how do you think about that list I had there?
So my tier 5, I didn't go with you. Of course, all these guys they're good, in their respective rights, just compared to the other 12 guys. I don't think they're there. One of my favorite things to do is sit back and judge people for things I can't do. I would never be able to go be an SEC quarterback, not in a million years. But
and we're calling him, we're like, this dude's trash.
Yeah, no, I can definitely
be the
critique
worst.
them.
Yeah.
But so both of mine, they're in the tier awful. But it's all they're awful compared to the rest. Okay. Both came from the Big Ten. If that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what does. But I have Graham Mertz and Peyton Thorne. I don't think they're good. I think any other quarterback in the SEC, even a lot of backups would start over both of them. Like you said about Graham Mertz, I mean, I know Billy Napier said that he's going to be good. He has a lot of trust in him, but he's got to show me because I don't believe it even a little bit. And Peyton Thorne, that was a quarterback battle with 3 of the worst quarterbacks in the SEC. Probably the worst quarterback room in the whole SEC, and maybe one of the worst in the nation. So he barely won it. Like even Hugh Freeze said he's not much of a playmaker. He needs to show him more. So I don't know. Both those guys are bad. And then my tier 4, still not amazing. I have not great. That's what I named it. AJ Swan, which I really wanted to put him at decent, but he plays for Vandy. So I do think AJ Swan is the best in this tier. I believe he's the 5th worst in the SEC, which for Vandy standards is not bad at all. But I have AJ Swan, Jalen Milroe, and Connor Wegman. Connor Wegman has a lot of potential. But it's kind of similar to Graham Mertz where he needs to show me. He's just in a not great tier right now. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, so my tier 4, I had good quarterbacks. I listed this as good quarterbacks, and I have 3. And I'm going to start off with Connor Wegman because I know he's, like you just said, he's a very talented guy. And I know I ranted about Jimbo Fisher last week. But Jimbo, when he went out and got this guy, he had a chance to get Quinn Ewers. And he said, I like Connor Wegman better than I like Quinn Ewers. And I think we saw flashes last year of how good Connor Wegman can be. But I don't think he was given a fair shot, especially becoming the starter towards the end of the year with a team that already wasn't playing for much. They weren't going to be a bowl team. I think it was a disservice to him for Jimbo throwing him out there. I mean, he was basically just a tackle dummy for a few games. But I think this year, obviously, I'm a little bit higher on Texas A&M than most people. I have him going 9-3, and I think he's going to be instrumental to their offense this year. And he's got some weapons this year. Not that he didn't last year. I just think he's got a more experience and more experience under the belt of those weapons.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm looking at him, judging him from last season, which, I mean, like you said, he was thrown into the fire as a freshman, with an awful team. Well, sorry. Amazing team. One of the most top 5 talented in the nation last year.
Young, very inexperienced and very young.
Yeah.
Give him that,
but also, yeah. I mean, like you said, a team that wasn't playing for much, full of transfers, guys who didn't want to be there. So, you're definitely right in that realm. So, I mean, I kind of want to put him where I had Texas A&M in my tier rankings where, in the tier 4, it's kind of, I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do. He might sink, he might swim. So we'll see.
My last 2 good quarterbacks that I have listed in my 4th tier, you got Jackson Dart of the Ole Miss Rebels. I think this guy gets a lot of hate for really no reason. I thought he's pretty productive quarterback for them. I mean, if you're getting the approval of Lane Kiffin, I mean, I think that says something. And even them bringing in Spencer Sanders and Walker Howard out of LSU and Oklahoma State, respectively. And it says a lot that Jackson Dart's taken all the 1 reps pretty much throughout fall camp. So if you're Lane Kiffin's quarterback, you've got to be a dude. And I think he's a good quarterback. I wouldn't necessarily call him a difference maker or anything like that, but I think he's a very good quarterback. And then lastly, the last quarterback in my good quarterback section is Carson Beck, obviously quarterback at the University of Georgia. I have him as in the 4th tier, but still under the good quarterback tier. Haven't seen much from him. Think he's got a lot of promise. He's just watching him in A-Day. Seems like he knows where to go with the ball. He's very efficient. I don't think he's going to shock you with too much talent. I just think he's got a lot of great players around him, and he's just going to kind of be we always got comparisons as an Alabama fan. Bryce was a point guard. I think Carson Beck's going to be a point guard. He's going to dish it to the right guy when he needs to. If he's got to run, he'll do that. I just think he's a very good quarterback in the SEC. He's going to be quarterbacking one of the best offenses in the SEC. So he's going to have a lot of success this year. So I have him listed as a good quarterback.
Just to correct you, you said A-Day. We don't do that.
G-Day, excuse me.
G-Day. Yeah, sorry. It's G-Day. We don't call it A-Day. That's disrespectful.
To the 6-time national championship Alabama Crimson Tide. You're right.
Yeah. We're back to back. So whatever.
Yeah. We've done it before too. We made it cool before you guys did.
Yeah, let me enjoy it. I'm a Georgia fan. I've gone through years and years and years of heartbreak, so I deserve it.
I haven't. So
yeah, I know. Privilege. That's what that's called. Privilege.
That's what happens when you're the best.
Anyway. I mean, we definitely have very different tiers. I have Carson Beck also in the good category, but you'll see where that is for me. It is not tier 4. Tier 4 is not great. My tier 3 is decent. Speaking of your guy, Joe Milton, he's decent. He is not elite. He is a Heisman contender just because he plays for Tennessee, but I mean, he's not elite. I don't understand it. Most overrated player in college football. I could be eating all my words this time in like 6 weeks. So we'll see what happens. But
your boy
they have
told
UTSA
you
on. They have UTSA on the schedule. I'd be scared if I was Joe Milton for them. I have Joe Milton, Jackson Dart, like you said, and also Brady Cook. Brady Cook probably would be in the tier above this, the good tier, if he wasn't on Mizzou, but unfortunate circumstances for him. Not highly touted out of high school, so he's got to deal with what he was given. But I agree everything with Jackson Dart. I think people just hated him because he came from USC. He's not SEC bred.
He's a surfer boy. He's a surfer boy in Mississippi.
He does not look like he would be living in Mississippi right now. Dude looks like California. But yeah, you already spoke about them. My tier 2 though is good. So your tier 4 is my tier 2.
Well, my tier 3. Let me get my tier 3.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
But I titled my tier 3 difference makers. and I have 4 quarterbacks in this tier. I've got Spencer Rattler. Start off with him. He's an older veteran guy. I would say he doesn't have too much talent, but I definitely think without him, that South Carolina team looks a whole lot different this year. He's pretty essential. I mean, we are talking about 3 most important players to their team in 2023. He's not one of them. I don't have him listed as one of them, but he definitely could fall into that category. Another guy, I think that's true for all 4 of these guys, actually. KJ Jefferson out of Arkansas, Devin Leary out of Kentucky, and then obviously Will Rogers. And I'll touch on Devin Leary here in a little bit. But Will Rogers, I mean, you're talking about a guy who has the most passing yards in SEC history, and he only played 3 years of college ball. Yes, he played in the Mike Leach system. Rest in peace to a king. But I mean, I expect Will Rogers to pick up the new pro style offense that Zach Arnett's going to install there relatively well. I mean, he's a very gifted passer, very smart, intelligent guy. He does not get enough praise, and it's because he plays for the Mississippi State Bulldogs, who I'm a little bit higher on than most people. And that might lead into a hot take later. Hint, hint. But Will Rogers, yeah, I definitely don't think he gets the praise he deserves. He's a difference maker, and so are the other 3 guys that I mentioned. That's my tier 3.
I think Will Rogers gets a lot of praise. I think people know he's good now. I mean, I think he should be in your tier 1. I think he's way better than Joe Milton. If he was on Tennessee right now, he would be mocked as the number 3 quarterback taken, because obviously Drake May and Caleb Williams are just too good. But Will Rogers is really good, and Joe Milton is not. Anyway, I need to stop talking about Joe Milton. But my tier 2.
I think somebody doesn't like Joe Milton. I mean, I wonder where I got that idea from.
It's not a secret. I didn't hate him this much last year because he wasn't hyped up last year. And now Hendon Hooker's gone, and people think Joe Milton.
How are your feelings about Hendon Hooker before the season last year?
Oh, I loved Hendon Hooker.
Okay.
No, I mean, I don't hate teams unless it's Bama or Florida, and I hate players, even if it's Tennessee and Auburn. But if people get hyped up and I don't think they're that good, I'm not going to like them. Kind of just like Jermaine Burton this year. Don't think he's going to be good. Don't know why people think he's going to be good. He's going to be – anyway, we won't talk about that. Tier 2 for me, I could have named it difference makers. Number 1, Carson Beck. I think he's the best quarterback in this tier. Obviously very inexperienced, doesn't have a single start. But I mean, I know it wasn't a direct comparison, but you compared his play style to Bryce Young. Bryce Young was elite. And obviously I know you're not comparing them to as quarterbacks, but if we can get 3/4 of what Bryce Young was, Carson Beck is going to be a starter or a stud, and he will probably lead us to another national championship. Because like you said, so much star power around him. I mean, not that it's hard to not succeed, but you just have so many weapons. And then 2 players you just mentioned, I have Spencer Rattler and Devin Leary, both in that tier as well. I think they're top 5 quarterbacks in the SEC. I think they're going to be really good, and especially very influential to how their team plays out this year. So you already talked about both of them. You haven't given your tier.
One more quarterback. My second tier. So my first 2 tiers are only one guy a tier. So obviously my national standout is going to go to Jaden Daniels. Tier 2 is going to be called national standout. Like I said last week, I said we need to pump the brakes a little bit on Heisman talk for him, but he is still a really good quarterback nationally. So I have him as the national standout quarterback, tier 2 in the SEC, Jaden Daniels. Obviously, I won't go into too much, but a dude that can do it all. The only thing I think he doesn't have the quite as much talent as like a Joe Milton or Carson Beck around him. He does have a really good receiver, Malik Neighbors. But I just don't think he's ready to take the step towards the Heisman. But very good, very efficient, very good quarterback that can also move well on his legs.
But let me ask you, why do you think we should pump the brakes on his Heisman talk, but not on Joe Milton?
Because Joe Milton
can throw it 90 yards?
Because Joe Milton has talent is out the wazoo. His ceiling is the sky, is the space.
No,
Joe
it's
Milton,
not.
I've never seen an athlete. I've never seen just raw talent that like Joe Milton ever has at the quarterback position.
Just because he can throw the ball 90 yards?
No, I'm not. It's just his raw. He can move. He can throw the ball hard. He can throw the ball far. If you go back and watch the Clemson tape last year, he was dissecting that Clemson defense
No,
in a
he
close game.
wasn't. They
Go back
scored
and
like
watch the tape.
12
Go back and
points.
watch the tape. He's in a hyper offense that is set up to make every quarterback succeed. That's in that
And
offense.
he barely
It doesn't matter. It
succeeded in that
doesn't
game.
matter. I get this. You're looking back at what he's looked like in the past, especially at Michigan, which was not good. But you also have to think Josh Heupel turned Hendon Hooker around. Hendon Hooker was not good at Virginia Tech. He was below average, and he made Hendon Hooker a second-round draft pick. Joe Milton has much more talent than Hendon Hooker ever had. And Joe Milton started at Michigan. Hendon Hooker started at Virginia Tech. If Joe Milton's potential is completely tapped, that dude is a top 5 NFL draft pick. And I believe this year Josh Heupel will do that.
I think Joe Milton is Anthony Richardson.
And where was Anthony Richardson drafted?
No, I believe he will probably be a top 15 pick. I agree with you.
The only thing I like better about Joe Milton that's different than Richardson is he's set up in an offense that's completely – if you put Anthony Richardson in that Tennessee offense last year, I mean, I think Hooker may have operated a little bit better, but Anthony Richardson would have been insane. He may have won the Heisman. That's all I'm saying. Joe Milton is a more talented Anthony Richardson.
So
he's going to be in that offense.
Are we talking about what we think their stats are going to be or how they are as a quarterback?
I think
Joe Milton on any other team is bad.
Well, let me just tell you, when Joe Milton wins the Heisman this year, the receipt will be in my hand right here. And Jake Osteen, you're going to be signing, buddy. You're going to be the one signing the check.
I wouldn't be surprised if he won the Heisman because, like you're saying, it's all about the system that he's in. You haven't talked about how he is as a quarterback. You said he has a lot of talent. I mean, if you're talking about arm talent, yeah, he can throw the ball 90 yards.
So like I said, he was at Alabama, do you think he'd start?
Yeah, I don't think that.
I don't think there's what I'm trying to get at. I don't think there's many teams in the conference he wouldn't start at. I think he'd start at Georgia. I think he'd start over Carson Beck at Georgia. I definitely think he would. I think he started over Jackson Dart. I think he started over Wegman. He started over Milroe, Thorne, Cook, Swan, Mertz. Probably not Will Rogers. Probably not.
I think he's
just the way they run their offense. He'd start over Jefferson. He'd start over Rattler. He'd start over Daniels. I think there may be 2 quarterbacks he wouldn't start over, and that's just the way that those teams run their offenses.
I think he easily starts over
this guy,
Mertz and Thorne. He easily starts over Milroe, Swan, and Wegman, and Brady Cook.
This guy's going to turn some heads this year, guys. I'm telling you. You guys can listen to Jake.
Everyone's head is already turned. Everyone's head is already turned except for mine. He might turn. Look, he might turn my head, and if that happens, if he can actually if he throws for 500 yards and an interception in every single game for the first 5 weeks, that means nothing to me. Because, I mean, like you said, everything you've said is just about the system he's in. I agree 100%. I think he's going to put up numbers. I think he's going to put up huge numbers. But when he has to make any type of throw, he's not going to do it because he is Anthony Richardson. He has no accuracy. He throws further than Anthony Richardson. Isn't as great of an athlete because that dude is like top 1% athletic in NFL. Yeah. But Anthony Richardson sucked every single time he had to make a throw. Because he couldn't, and it's going to be the exact same with Joe Milton.
Only time will tell, my friend. And just let me ask you a question: do you really think I want to be voluntarily hyping up the Tennessee Volunteers?
Like it. You put him in a tier of his
own.
I
hate Tennessee. I hate them. I cannot stand orange. Like throw up orange. I can't stand them. I would not voluntarily hype up Peyton Black's team just so they can have the gratification. I believe Joe Milton is going to be a Heisman-winning quarterback. That is it. Let's move on, guys. That little bit of disagreement there, but we'll move on. We got time. So
a little bit.
That'll lead into our most important players to their team in 2023. And I'm going to keep it right in the SEC to start off with. Devin Leary. We've got great reports out of Lexington, Kentucky about this guy. Mark Stoops hasn't quite said it, but the way he's talking about this guy is he's going to have a better season than Will Levis. Now, granted, I never thought Will Levis was the greatest quarterback, but he definitely was an upgrade than what they previously had in previous years. I mean, Devin Leary, 118 of 193 last year, 61.1%, 1,265 yards, 6.6 yards per pass, 11 touchdowns, 4 picks. But listen, guys, he was a guy that was injured a lot last year. And we saw what happened when Will Levis was plagued with injuries last year and he went down. Let me just tell you who the Kentucky backup quarterback is. Kaya Sharon. Exactly. We saw him play last year. You know how many points he put up?
0.
That's how many points he put up. Devin Leary is instrumental to this team. Kaya Sharon is not the answer. Deuce Hogan is on this team, listed as the 4th-string quarterback. He once pretty high recruit. So yeah, Devin Leary might be, to me, one of the most important players to not only his team in the SEC but nationally speaking.
Very fair. I'll keep it within the same realm of SEC quarterback. We already talked about him. KJ Jefferson. I probably should have looked it up. I have no clue who their backup quarterback is, but he's a veteran presence.
It's still Malik Hornsby, but I mean, we've seen, like you were saying, every year, every time KJ leaves, they're a different team.
Yeah, Malik Hornsby should be a wide receiver. He should not still be at the quarterback position. Great athlete.
He's a burner, though. He's a burner.
Oh no, 100%. But he can't throw. And so, I mean, like you said, we've seen what happens once KJ Jefferson gets injured. I believe did they lose to Mississippi State last year? Once,
yeah, they got blown out. They got destroyed.
Yeah, when they had to rely on Malik Hornsby, and Mississippi State was not a good team last year.
I think that was like 51-14. It was a blowout.
Yeah. So I mean, as long as KJ Jefferson stays healthy, I think Arkansas is a player. I don't think they can win the West, but they can potentially make some noise and finish as a top 15 team, in my opinion. But if KJ Jefferson goes down, they quickly fall to the bottom of the SEC tier, in my opinion. I think if they lose KJ Jefferson, especially early in the season, they might finish in the last in the West.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
We'll see.
Oh, no doubt.
I think, like I said, KJ Jefferson is in my tier 1. He's elite. I'm still in your tier. He's a game changer. So he's one of my most important players. Sticking with the quarterback position. This one, everyone's, I think, going to agree with, but he's not really a head turner. We were talking about this before the show about Colorado. Shedeur Sanders. I'm not buying into the hype of who he is, what Dion is saying about. I mean, it's his son, and what everybody's saying about him. Apparently, I saw this a week ago, but he had like 22 touchdowns, 0 interceptions so far in fall camp. That doesn't mean a lot. I mean, it's kind of in fall camp, it's kind of similar, especially if there's no battle. It's kind of similar to a scout team quarterback where you're supposed to try to make throws. You're trying to figure things out when it doesn't really matter. So the fact that he hasn't thrown an interception, which I don't believe anyway, it doesn't say the best things. But I mean, I just looked up their backup quarterback. It's a freshman in Ryan Staub. And their 3rd string is another freshman in Kason Wiseman. So if Shedeur Sanders goes down, which I do think he's good, I don't think he's ever going to turn out to be a top 2 rounder in the NFL draft. Dion's a great salesman, and he might be able to sell his son to be a 3rd rounder. But I don't know. I don't think he's that great. But if he goes down, I think they're going to go 6-6 this season. If he goes down, they might go 2-10. They might go 1-11 again. Because I mean, they have a lot better team than they had last year. But that quarterback position is so important, especially in today's day and age. You can't just rely on, Travis Hunter, who's also a very important player to their team. But you got to have somebody to get the ball to him.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. But you just mentioned Travis Hunter. I'm going to take it a step further and also say Cormani McClain. Travis Hunter and Cormani McClain might be the 2 most important players, as well as Shiloh Sanders, the brother of Shedeur. Because think about it, they're in the Pac-12 and they're playing probably the best quarterback conference in college football. They're going to have to play Michael Penix. They're going to have to play Caleb Williams. They're going to have to play Bo Nix, Dante Moore, Jaden DeLara. I mean, they've got some really good quarterbacks out there, and they're going to have those 3 guys are going to have to stop them. And not only that, Travis Hunter's also going to have to catch some passes on offense as their best receiver. So I mean, what a daunting task for him. He might be. He really is the Shohei Ohtani of college football.
Yeah, but I don't like how people. I mean, I've seen it over TikTok and Instagram. People are rating him like a top 5 cornerback and top 5 wide receiver.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Everything he did was at Jackson State. He's definitely talented. Don't get me wrong. Number 1 overall recruit. Yeah. But, he hasn't done anything in in FBS yet, so we just have to wait and see. I don't get me wrong, he's a great player. I'm interested to see what his best position is because I still have no clue. I don't know if he's a better corner or a better receiver. But yeah, he's one of my most important players as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to go for my second most important player. We're going to stay on offense. We're going to move to the running back position. I'm going to go Quinshon Judkins. Obviously a really good player. Not many people, that's not really up for debate, but just in terms of importance to his team. So let's think back to last year. Last year, Ole Miss had 3 very viable backs. Quinshon was a true freshman. So Ole Miss gets the transfer of Zach Evans from TCU, who I thought was going to be an absolute monster at Ole Miss. Started off the year as the starter, but I mean, this Quinshon Judkins just came on towards the middle of the year, towards the end of the year. Quinshon ended last year with 274 carries for 1,567 yards, 16 touchdowns. He also had 15 catches for around 130 yards and a touchdown. So he accumulated 16 touchdowns last year, 15 of them being on the ground. I mean, that's insane for a true freshman, a guy who wasn't recruited by Georgia or Alabama, a 3-star recruit actually out of Birmingham or Montgomery. It was either Birmingham or Montgomery, one of them. But his backup this season is a 5th-year senior in Ulysses Bentley, the 4th, who's a pretty quality back. But I think the Ole Miss offense kind of goes where he goes this year. They're definitely they're talented at quarterback. They're talented at receiver, but he is the centerpiece of that offense. And he provided a quarter of production on the Rebels offense last year. 30% of their touchdowns were his last year. I expect that number to go way up, probably over 50% this year with Zach Evans being gone. And also with Jonathan Mingo leaving, that was a huge loss at the receiver room. Hopefully we'll pray for good health. We know how the running back situation has been at Georgia and other SEC teams in the past, especially with these daunting front sevens he's going to face. So if health and all that goes well, I expect Quinshon Judkins to have a massive season. I honestly wouldn't. I think 25 rushing touchdowns might be something he accomplishes this year. So I think he's very important to the Ole Miss Rebels offense this upcoming year.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll keep it at the running back position. A team not necessarily in the same place, but maybe of the same stature. Wisconsin, I have Braylon Allen as one of the most important players in all of college football, and especially to his team. We saw what he did his freshman year. Electric. After his freshman year, I thought he was the best running back in all of college football. Last year, maybe not exactly disappointing is the right words, because he played 10 games and had over 1,200 yards. And how many touchdowns did he have? 11 touchdowns. So, not elite. And I think he spent some of the year hurt. But also, he was the only player on a bad Wisconsin team last year. They're a lot better this year. A lot of people are picking them to win their division. I don't think they will, but they're the heavy favorite to win. So, I know they have a few grad transfers back there at running back, so it's not that they're inexperienced. And I don't know who they are, but I'm sure they can hold their own. But Braylon Allen is still a top 3 running back in the whole nation. I don't know what this year has in store for him, but if he goes down, and like you just talked about, the running back position can be tough. If you get hit in the ankle once, it can be a high ankle sprain and you're out for 6 weeks. Kendall Milton has experienced that so many different times. But if he goes down, Wisconsin goes from probably the favorite to probably the 3rd favorite to win their division. I believe he's a great player. Like I said, top 3 running back in the nation, in my opinion. We'll see what he does this year.
I actually do have Wisconsin winning their division. They got Tanner Mordecai, the transfer from SMU, former Oklahoma guy, really good quarterback, really underrated. Probably one of the better ones they've had in a long time there as well. Like we were talking about Sam Hartman earlier. But Braylon Allen, his freshman year, he was going up for the Doak Walker. Last year, he was a little injured, but I'd slide him right behind Quinshon and Blake. Blake Corum in terms of running backs in college football. Definitely agree with that. But I also think, in just a little quick nugget on Wisconsin, this might be a hot take. It's not in my list today. I think Wisconsin has the best head coach in the Big Ten, Luke Fickell. I think he is the best head coach in the Big Ten. I'd slide Jim Harbaugh and and Penn State. I can't think of his name. James Franklin right behind them.
I
I love
really
Fickle. I really like what I see out of Fickle, and I think he's going to be. Wisconsin might be a problem here in a few years.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, we saw what he did at Cincinnati. Took the only Group of 5 team to go to the playoff. And they didn't play great against Bama, but I mean, it was also Bama. They had just beaten Georgia, who was thought to be the best team in the nation. Well, was the best team in the nation. Just beaten Georgia the week before or weeks before, and didn't play great, but didn't play bad. They held their own in the playoff.
I mean, you got to be realistic as well with the way the way their talent is. So
and so especially to see the noise he's been creating in his first season already, with a competent program, historic program. I mean, I like what
Paul
I
Chris won. Paul Chris was winning 8, 9, 10 games a year there, and he got fired.
So
I mean, that just shows you that they've got higher expectations than most think they would.
I don't think this is the year for Wisconsin. A lot of people have immediate gratification. They want to be able to. Their coach comes in and they win 12 games, 11, 12 games. But I mean, even Kirby didn't do that. His first year, he went 7-5. I believe he won the bowl game, so 8-5. But
Saban's first year, he went 7-6. Y'all, Saban lost to University of Louisiana Monroe at home in his first year at Alabama.
He lost to Vandy, so I mean that's how it is. So I think there's going to be some growing pains for Luke Fickell, but Braylon Allen, super important to him this year.
Absolutely. Well, my final guy that I have is we're going to go on defense here. It's Jared Verse out of Florida State University, the junior edge rusher. 47 tackles, 9 sacks in 2022. He is their leader on defense in the front seven. One of, if not the best pass rusher in college football. We all know in the new landscape of college football, and especially in the NFL, how coveted edge pass rushers are. You got to have those kind of guys to win. And man, if FSU wants to take that next step and beat Clemson, they've got to get after Cade Klubnik. And this is the guy to do it. If he's not on the field, I don't like their chances of getting at the quarterback near as much as when he's on it. So yeah, Jared Verse is very important to that FSU defense, especially a team that is not as they're not a very high blue chip ratio team, but they're very high in the rankings this year. And that just shows you they've got a lot of they've really developed those guys. They're very experienced. They're a very mature group. So Jared Verse is going to have to come in, and he'll definitely be a top 10 draft pick in the NFL draft. Probably could have been last year. A lot of people think so. This guy's gonna step up for FSU, and he's gonna be a guy to watch.
I don't know about top 10 last year, but definitely top 10 this upcoming year. He was a first round lock last year, and chose to stay at home at Florida State. So big decision from him. And like you said, I mean, they're going to need pass rushers to get home against Cade Klubnik against Clemson to be able to win. And I think he can do it. I mean, you said 9
last year, 47 tackles, 9 sacks. It's pretty solid, pretty good.
As long as he stays healthy, I think he breaks 10 sacks this year. 6'4", 260. He just looks scary. If I was lined up against him, I'd just let him get back to the quarterback. So no, I really like that pick. Florida State's they're a dark horse to win the Natty.
Yeah, but they're the definition of a dark horse, that's for sure.
That might be a hot take, but not one of my hot takes. Let me give you one. My very first
hot take or a player?
Hot take.
Oh, so we're transitioning to hot takes now. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. This is our last segment, so we'll transition to hot takes and we'll call it a night. All right, go ahead.
UTSA. I don't know if you've heard any hype behind them. I haven't.
Okay.
I think they're going to be the number 1 Group of 5 team, which probably isn't much of a hot take, but I think they finished in the top 15.
Wow. Okay.
If you haven't heard the name Frank Harris, he's a dog.
Frank Harris is a dog.
He's so good. Last year they went 10-3 with losses to both Texas and Houston, Texas was ranked in the top 12. I don't know why. Never understand why Texas is always hyped up. That's a conversation for another time. Houston was ranked in the top 25, and they took them into
just a little salt in the wound there from that 2018 Sugar Bowl.
I completely forgot about that, but I guess so. And then they lost to Troy in the bowl game, which I hate to say it, but bowl games don't mean what they used to. I mean, both teams probably had a lot of teams sitting out. But this year they play Tennessee, Tulane, and Houston all on the road. And so, I mean, even if they lose all 3 of those games, I think they finish as the number 1 Group of 5 team because I think they go undefeated outside of those games. And especially
they've got to win one of those. They've got to win one. I mean, it's probably not Tennessee, but Houston. I don't think Houston's going to be a good team this year. I think they could take Houston. I think they could.
Yeah, probably not. But Houston's notable on their schedule. Now in the Big 12. I think they finish 11-1 with, of course, a loss to Tennessee, because even though I think they're going to be a top 15 team, they probably can't really compete against Tennessee, especially at Neyland. But they returned their leading passer in Frank Harris, leading rusher, leading receiver, and leading tackler. So UTSA could make a name for themselves.
The Roadrunners. I like it. I like it. I'm going to start off. I've got 3 hot takes. I'm going to start off with the least hot of the take. To the temperature. We'll do it like a wing sauce. The temperature is a little mild here.
Mild. Okay.
Every SEC West team makes a bowl game. So every SEC West team finishes 6-6 or better in this upcoming season. I think this is the best division in college football. The 3 teams I have at the bottom of the conference are at the bottom of the division: Arkansas, Auburn, Mississippi State. Assuming good health for all those teams, I do think they're all bowl contending teams, all quality teams. I think Mississippi State's probably the worst team in the division at 6 but I have them going 6-6, and I mean this SC West is just going to be a gauntlet this year.
I have to say, have you seen some of the preseason top 25s putting Mississippi State in like the top 20?
Even Auburn. Auburn at 20. Auburn at 21 makes no sense.
No sense. I mean, sense. I would definitely call that a mild take. But compared to what this media thinks, I don't think
that's what I'm basing it on. And even like Arkansas isn't even in the top 25. And I think Arkansas is a better team than Auburn and Mississippi State, and they're not in the top 25. So
I don't know who's voting on these things, but Mississippi State is not a top 25 team.
Auburn it's just like the Heisman. There's a bunch of media people that get votes for this that don't deserve votes. They're casual football fans, as Josh Pate would say. So
it's weird.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Give us number 2 for you.
I'll let you go since I only have 2. You go ahead.
Well, all right. Here's my medium sauce. Sauce. I've got Maryland upsets one of the big 3 in the Big Ten East. I think they'll beat one of Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State this year. We I think in the first episode I kind of touched on Taulia Tagovailoa and Mike Locksley's Maryland Terrapins, but I mean they've been pretty close in the past few years. Almost beat Ohio State last year. I think this is finally the year they do beat one of those teams. I think it's more likely to happen at home, whether it's Michigan or Michigan or Penn State. But I think this is the year that the Terrapins make some noise and knock off one of those teams. Usually one of those Big Ten teams gets knocked off by someone you don't think is going to knock them off. So I'm going to say the Maryland Terrapins are going to do it.
I don't think that's going to happen. So that definitely makes it a hot take. I like it though. Maryland is probably top 5 team in the Big Ten. That doesn't say much past the top 3, honestly. But I mean, you have trust in Taulia. I don't. So I guess that's where the difference is. I don't think he can lead them to, especially Michigan. I don't think there's a shot they beat Michigan. But Ohio State and Penn State, I mean, could get interesting. I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't think that take's terrible. My hot take that you are going to hate with the passion, although you might secretly agree with it. Bo Nix plays his way into a top 7 pick in the draft. I was going to say top 5, but that was a little too hot for me because if Caleb Williams or Drake May, if one of them was out of this class, I would say top 5. But I think that's obviously 1A, not 1A, 1B. That's 1 and 2 in Caleb Williams and Drake May. So, they're going to come off the board and someone's going to need a quarterback later on. Bo Nix, we both know how he's played in the SEC. He's 0-3 against Georgia in his career. He's awful against us. I wish I had his stats. I kind of want to pull them. I might pull it up whenever you're talking about your next take. But last year, injured. Did you watch that Utah Oregon game last year?
Yeah.
Dog. Last year, threw for 3,600 yards, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and had 85 QBR, which was 8th in the nation. I mean, really all he needed to do was get out of the SEC. That's all he needed to do. We saw when he went back into the SEC, when he went back to Atlanta to play Georgia, we saw what he did. He sucked. But as soon as he went back to the Pacific Northwest, out to play those bum defenses, excelled there. He excelled. And I think he's a good quarterback. I think he got too much hate at Auburn. It's not an impossible position for him, but I mean, Auburn's a hard place to play as a quarterback because you have a top 5 hardest schedule in college football year in and year out. You have to play Georgia and Bama, and especially since their schedule
West.
is, SEC West is give and take sometimes. But when he was at Auburn, that's when the SEC West was the best. But especially since Georgia and Alabama, they are on the same home and away schedule for Auburn. So like this year, they both have them at home. So I mean, his schedule was rough when he was at Auburn, and Pac-12 is still, I mean, like we said, most competitive league in the division conference. I can't talk. Most competitive conference in the nation. But Bo Nix, think he might play his way into top 7.
I would say I don't hate it. I mean, I wouldn't say I hate it either. I'm kind of indifferent on it, mainly because I do think he's gotten so much better since leaving Auburn, which is funny because Gus Malzahn was supposed to be the quarterback whisperer, and that never really turned out to be. But he's gotten much better since he's been at Oregon. Maybe partly that's because of he's not playing as good of defenses. Mainly, maybe that's maturity, or maybe he's just been working hard at it, which I'm sure he has been. But I definitely see himself getting himself into the draft. I don't think it's going to be a first round pick. I see him more as a second or third, maybe even fourth rounder. But I don't hate it. It's not awful. If Bo Nix was at Auburn and you said that, I probably would hate it because I can't stand them. But let me just touch on what you were talking about with Auburn. I think the Auburn head coaching job is the hardest job in college football.
Yeah.
For these reasons. You play Alabama and Georgia every single year. You also play LSU every single year. You play Arkansas every year. You play A&M. You play Ole Miss. I mean, you play the SEC West and those two teams. Plus, you have the most what's the word I'm looking for? The most unrealistic fan base in college football. I mean, that fan base thinks you are going to be able to compete with Alabama and Georgia year in and year out for not only recruits but on the field with subpar facilities and subpar money and donorships compared. I mean, let's say Alabama and Georgia have much more revenue going into those athletic programs than Auburn does. Yet Auburn expects to compete just with them. And to me, being honest, it's very impressive that Gene Chizik won a national championship there. Yes, yeah. Cam Newton put that team on his back. Yes, he put them all in a sack and threw it right over his shoulder and carried them to a national championship. But I mean, you still got to give that guy kudos for winning a national championship. It's a very hard place to win. But now that I've said my 2 cents on Auburn, I don't think that's a terrible take.
Do you want to hear how he's played against Georgia the past 4 seasons?
Yeah, let's hear it.
He's 0-4. In 2019, 30 for 50, 245 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions.
Bo Nix should never throw 50 passes in a game, first off.
54 QBR. They lost. I don't know the score. Anyway, 2020, lost 27-6. 21 for 40, 170 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, 46 QBR. 2021, still at Auburn, lost 34-10, 21 for 38, 217 yards, 0 touchdowns, an interception, 38 QBR. And then this past year with Oregon, didn't get better. 21 for 37, 173 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 58 QBR. So, I mean, as long as he's not playing Georgia in the NFL, I think he can be decent.
You better hope you get drafted by the Eagles.
We've hated on Bo Picks enough, so you go ahead and give your last.
All right, we'll finish the show with this one. And I've told a few of my friends this, and I've been met with much, not I wouldn't say hate, but haste would be the word I would say.
Good word.
I have the Colorado Buffaloes finishing at 7-5 this year in the Pac-12.
I don't hate it. Let's
run through their schedule real quick, and we'll count the wins. All right, first game of the season at TCU. A lot of people are going to go with TCU. I'm going to go Colorado in this game, and here's why. I think just Deion Sanders, he is going to start off his FBS coaching with a clinic. I'm not saying they're going to win by a lot, but I expect Deion to have his guys fired up and ready to play TCU, and TCU to come out a little slow, especially after last year, losing a ton of talent. But I'm going to go 1-0 here with Colorado. All right. How do you think? You think they're going to win that game or lose that game?
No, I don't hate your take. I think they end up losing that game. TCU, they lost a lot of players from last year, but Still a top 25 team, I think. Still going to be really good. Still have a lot of guys on that defense and a few guys on the offense. I think Colorado, I don't hate your take at all. I think they go 6-6, and they very well end up they very well could beat one of these guys.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be TCU, but.
So let's run through your schedule real quick. TCU, I've got to win. Nebraska, I've got a loss. Colorado State, I've got to win. At Oregon, I've got a loss. At home against USC, I've got a loss. At Arizona State, I've got to win. At home against Stanford, I've got to win. At UCLA, I have a win. At home against Oregon State, I have a win. Or no, excuse me, I didn't have a win against UCLA. Sorry. Arizona at home, win. At Washington State, loss. At Utah State, loss. So I've got 7 wins there for the Colorado Buffaloes. I mean, I think they've got the talent. I think Deion's going to be a great coach. And let me just tell you how much, and we've talked about this, I am so thankful he's not the head coach at Auburn. So thankful.
Talked about
Thank you for hiring Hugh Freeze. He may beat Alabama a few times. He may beat Georgia once. I don't know. But I am so glad it's not Deion Sanders.
Let me ask you, assuming Shedeur Sanders, we talked about how important he is to Colorado. Assuming he's healthy the whole season, what's their floor and what's their ceiling in your mind?
I think their floor is 4-8 probably. I think their ceiling is 8-4. So I'm a lot closer to their ceiling.
I'm not gonna make you give a ceiling, but if he is out, say they lose both, say he gets injured in the Nebraska game and they lose both of those games, what's their floor? And he's out for the season.
3-9.
Huh?
I say 3-9.
No, that's their floor, or that's what you think they're gonna go?
That's their floor. I think that's their floor. Yeah, no, I think 3. I'm gonna say 3-9.
If Shedeur is out for the whole season, say he doesn't play a single snap, their floor might be 0-12.
I'm gonna say 3-9. I trust Deion. I really trust Deion, and I think you kind of have to, the way his story is being painted. I think he's gonna have to have a really good, an up par season, something better than most people think. So yeah, I think he's gonna go 7-5.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, everyone, thanks again for joining us tonight. We had a great show. I mean, a lot of fiery moments there. But again, can't thank you guys enough for watching. Please like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Again, on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube. Even send us a comment, maybe a few suggestions. Tell us how we're doing on our picks. Did you agree with it or did you not? But we'll be back again probably next Monday after week 0 to kind of wrap up the 7 games and maybe even give some predictions about week 1. Football's here, guys. I know I'm excited. I know Jake's excited. So thanks again, guys, and roll Tide.
Go Dogs.